next speaker is from the Texas area. Big star, spent a lot of years with RE/MAX. They loved him. He taught, trained, coached, and then he decided 4 years ago, he goes, I'm going to go on my own and just go independent. And the first week, 3 people joined him. The next week, 3 more. At the end of the first month, 12. At the end of the first year, he had over 100 agents because people are drawn to this man. And he wanted to be a pastor. Then he ended up being in the business world, and he just looks at that the same way. Within 4 years, he had over 400 people at his independent brokerage. They all love him. And he's going to come up here and tell you why one of the largest independent brokerages in the nation joined EXP just a few months ago, and why. He's a very special person. Help me welcome all the way from Houston, Texas, Mr. Frank Gray, everybody.
Thanks, man. God bless you, man.
I already told Brent I'm not dancing, so don't wait for it. Ain't happening. Hey, before we talk about real estate, I want to talk about something really important, and I'm talking about the beautiful blonde down at the end of the second row. That is my babe in Christ, my godly blessing, the woman who saved my life 32 years ago when she agreed to be my wife. We are here with you in Cabo this week, celebrating our brand new affiliation with the greatest real estate company in the world, EXP. But we're also here celebrating our 32-year affiliation with each other as husband and wife. So, love you, baby. Happy anniversary. I want to talk to you this morning for a few minutes about a mission, a ministry, and a calling. I never wanted to be a real estate agent, and that's because my mama was one. That was back in the prehistoric 1970s. If my mom was home, she was literally tethered to the wall, her movements restricted by the length of the telephone cord. And if we went out of the house, it was even worse, because my mom was an incessant prospector. Everywhere we went, if it was Kentucky Fried Chicken, she was handing her business card over the counter to the manager. If we're going to the grocery store, she's walking down the aisles, handing business cards to everybody in front of the green beans. Ma'am, have you thought about buying a new home? She'd interrupt the guy trying to get a pork chop. Sir, have you considered investing in real estate? It was humiliating. Me and my sisters determined whatever life brought us, we would never, ever be real estate agents. Of course, I had other plans of my own. Like most boys, I love to play cowboys and Indians and shoot BB guns, but I really dreamed about someday being a pastor, being a minister, being a missionary. And my sisters and I, while still in grade school, put together this strategy for the evangelization of the nation of India. Now, I never got to be a missionary, and to this day, I've never stepped foot in the nation of India. But that sense of calling permeated my childhood, so that when I graduated from college, it was no surprise to anybody that I headed off to seminary and then served as a youth minister in New Mexico, then a senior pastor in Missouri, all in my 20s. But by my early 30s, it was time to take a sabbatical. I wanted to go back to school and earn my doctorate of ministry degree. And of course, by then, Mary and I had 2 incredibly wonderful, beautiful children, and they liked to eat. So had to take a job, and I got one managing a Kinko's store. It was all right. It paid the bills, kept the food on the table. But one day I was sitting at the kitchen table in our tiny little apartment, just flipping through the newspaper, because this was the olden days. And I came across an ad. It was a big wanted ad, a help wanted ad from the RE/MAX organization. They were looking for a management consultant. And they specifically wanted somebody who'd been to grad school and who enjoyed public speaking. I showed the ad to Mary. I said, honey, RE/MAX is looking for me. And even though I wasn't looking for another job, I made a phone call, went through a couple interviews, and I was told at a certain day and a certain time, you need to be available, because you're going to get a phone call from the HR director at RE/MAX World Headquarters giving you the terms of an employment offer. So sure enough, the appointed day and time came. I'm working on the floor at Kinko's. One of my coworkers comes to me and says, "Frank, there's a call for you." So I walked over to the wall, picked up the receiver, because this was the olden days. And sure enough, it's a very nice lady from Denver going through the terms of an employment offer. But while she is talking in my ear, I am having another conversation, and this one with God. And it went something like this: Lord, I know this is a better job, and I know it's more money, and I know it's in more alignment with my strengths and the things that I like to do. But God, I don't really want another job. I want to be back in ministry. I want to be a pastor again. I want to walk in my calling. And just as clearly as I have ever heard anything in my life, before then or since then, God talked back to me. Not out loud, but in my spirit. And He said to me regarding this employment offer, "Frank, this is a mission and a ministry and a calling." I knew right then that I was being reassigned from the back row, the safety of the church, and sent out into the trenches, the nitty-gritty, the down and dirty world of real estate sales, working with real people, folks that I would never have met otherwise, people from all kinds of backgrounds, people from all over the world. And because I am a soldier under command, I said, "Yes, sir," to the Lord, and "Yes, ma'am," to that nice lady on the phone. That launched a 20-year-plus career with the RE/MAX organization, and I loved every day of it. I was a coach and a consultant. I got to run regions around the country: Ohio, Florida, Carolinas, Texas. My last few years with RE/MAX, I was their master trainer worldwide, created their broker owner training videos, got to travel the world training broker owners how to build strong, profitable businesses. They flew me to the world headquarters every month to train all their new franchisees from around the world. It was an incredible run. And it was because I never looked at it as a job, but I saw it as a mission, a ministry, and a calling. I loved the top producer culture at RE/MAX. We had the best of the best. That's what we told ourselves. But as so often happens personally and with organizations, sometimes our strength can also be our weakness. And I became increasingly frustrated and disturbed by the lack of opportunity that we provided to really good people, really talented people, motivated, fired up people who were going to have an incredible real estate career, but we would never give them a chance because they were new, they were unproven, or in many cases, even when a broker owner was willing to hire them, they couldn't gain traction because the fees were so high. And whenever they had a closing, the broker kept most of it. They never had enough to really put food on their own table or reinvest in their business. And over time, that disturbance in the force led to a new assignment in my mission, ministry, and calling. Brent mentioned it a moment ago. Just over 4 years ago, I left the RE/MAX organization and started my own independent real estate brokerage, Abbey Realty, named after our beautiful daughter with special needs, Abby. There were 4 agents, I called them the Courageous Four, and one very scared broker who gathered at our house on the night of November 15th, 2017. Mary provided chili and cornbread, and we plotted the start of this new company. I was scared, not because I thought it would fail. I knew I was going to provide what agents needed. In fact, we were very confident that ultimately we would 10x this organization. We'd have 30 or 40 agents someday. Now, I was scared a little bit because this was the first time in my life I had stepped away from the security of a W-2 paycheck. And I just wanted to make sure that I would still be able to put food on the table. But I need not have worried, because the very next week, 3 more joined us. The next week, 3 after that. The next week, 3 again. A couple months into it, I joined Frank Klesich and his recruiting group at Viral Marketing. And by the 6-month mark, we had 100 agents. Yeah. By our 4-year anniversary, just past November, we had 472 incredible agents. We were strong, respected, profitable, seemingly unstoppable. In fact, every year of our 4-year history, we were the fastest growing independent real estate brokerage in the state of Texas. And so you may share my shock and surprise and those of others when I stood up at our 4-year anniversary party just a few months ago and announced that it would be our last, because I was shutting down Abbey Realty to join eXp Realty and invite all 472 agents to come with me. The obvious question you should be wondering right now, and the question I have been getting ever since, is why? Why in the world? Something so good, so profitable, so incredible, so wonderful, named after your own daughter. Why would you shut that down and take the risk to move to eXp, not even knowing that a single agent might go with you? And I want to share with you the 3 reasons why I made that transition. And if you know any independent real estate brokerage owners, you might want to take notes. Because I guarantee you that no matter how good things are for them, no matter how successful they are, no matter how good it looks from the outside, there are some things that keep that broker awake at night. There are some problems an independent real estate broker cannot solve. And if you're aware of those, you can ask the right questions that leads them to the right answer to all their problems. And that answer is spelled in 3 letters, EXP. So here goes. Number 1, why did I transition from Abbey Realty over to eXp? Because it eliminated my financial risk and legal exposure as a broker owner. In our first 3 years, we had 3 E&O claims against us. 2 of them were completely bogus, and yet the E&O company didn't want to incur the cost of a legal defense, so they just settled automatically. They didn't even look into it. They made a payout. And so after 3 years, 3 payouts, they canceled us, and they threw us into a high-risk pool. Now, my E&O premium quintupled, and my per-claim deductible went from $1,000 to $50,000 per claim. Now, last year, we closed over 2,500 transactions. That's 5,000 transaction sides. You know what that means to a broker owner? 5,000 chances to get sued. And last year, there were 2 of those circulating through the system early on. And in both cases, it was a buyer suing a seller for failure to disclose structural defects in the home. Of course, the listing agent knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about it. But guess what? They got sued and I got sued because I'm Mr. Big Pockets. In the eye of these buyers, they always go after the broker. But what you may not know, and you need to know this, is that non-disclosure is considered a willful act. It's fraud, and therefore it is not covered by E&O insurance. It's not an error. It's not an omission. It's considered a criminal act. And so all the costs of defense, the hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees, and if there was a judgment, and they were seeking, both of them, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if only one of those had been a worst case outcome, it would have crippled me and financially. If there had been 2 or more, it would have wiped us out. Not only would have jeopardized Mary and I's financial future, but the livelihoods of the 472 families who were dependent on our brokerage being an ongoing concern. So last July, when my good buddy Adam Olson called me to ask my advice on another issue, I turned the tables on him. 3 months earlier, he had converted his independent brokerage over to eXp. So I started asking him questions about his new alignment. He didn't answer those questions. Instead, he said, well, why don't we get together over lunch and talk about it? I showed up to that lunch, and he'd brought another friend, Andrew Franklin, with him. He did a surprise three-way on me. And so over chicken fried steak, we talked for an hour and a half, and at the end of that time, I knew EXP would solve my problem of financial liability and legal exposure. But there was another problem I had that I had not been able to solve, and that was a succession plan. Now, as I stand before you right now, I'm strong, healthy, energized. I'm looking forward to years and years of productive labor ahead of me. But someday I may want to step away and chase grandkids full time. Or God forbid I get hit by a bus. What's going to happen to the company? What's going to happen to Mary? What's going to happen to our children? And I could not solve that problem. And I know there's ways to solve it. Everybody says, well, just sell the company. And yes, I had offers from big box franchises and other independent owners, but do you know all those purchase contracts have a retention clause? If the agents don't stay, the company doesn't pay. And I knew that my agents wouldn't stay if I left. Many of them joined because of me, my passion to help them, the fact that I saw it not as a job, but a mission and a ministry and a calling. I cared about them. I started the company for them. And I knew if I signed one of those contracts, my financial future would be in jeopardy. Of course, I could have just hired a manager, right? And taken the profits every year to support our family for the years of retirement. But I think you know as well as I do that there is often a big gap in commitment and talent between an owner and a manager. And that's not always the case. I know that in this room there's probably some managers who exceed and excel the skills and commitment level of their owners, but that's a rare, rare person. And as I looked around my world, I didn't have anybody that I would feel comfortable handing the keys to my company to. I did not have a succession plan. But when I heard about the retention tools at EXP, the light bulb went off. Are you kidding me? An icon agent? Would they ever, ever, ever leave EXP? Could they possibly leave? Or even a mid-level producer after a couple years. Now they got some revenue share going on. They got some stock ownership in the company. And it may not be a huge amount of money, but who else is going to give that to them? It subsidizes their cost of affiliation and drives it below the cheapest discount broker you'll find anywhere. I knew if I could get my agents to come with me, my retention problem was solved. My succession plan problem was solved. And at some point, I could ride off into the sunset, and my income would not only be secure and stable for all the years of retirement, but because of the leverage built into the exponential EXP plan, it would actually grow over time. Where else can you get that? I left that lunch with Adam and Andrew knowing that alignment with EXP solved my two biggest problems as an independent brokerage owner. But I would never have left. I would never have transitioned if it had just solved my problems. Remember, I started Abbey Realty not for me, but for those agents. It had to be an incredible value for them in order for me to make the switch. So at the end of that lunch, I promised Adam and Andrew, I'm going to enter a due diligence period. I'm going to see what EXP does for agents. And honestly, I was skeptical because my commitment had always been to provide the absolute best to my agents. If there was anything better in terms of tools, technology, training, I told my agents, you tell me, you'll have it tomorrow. I'm going to give you the best of everything there is. But when I started looking at EXP, oh my goodness, let me just say I was overwhelmed. They've got a relocation department. They've got an iBuyer program. They've got rev share. They've got ownership. Doggone it, they got health insurance. It just went on and on and on. And these were things I could never, ever have provided as an independent brokerage owner. I couldn't carve up my company into 472 pieces and hand it out. It just was impossible. And believe me when I say that when I came to that understanding that the EXP value proposition to my agents was better than what I could give them, I felt like I had a moral obligation to tell them about it. If I really meant what I said, that I loved them and I cared about them and I put their interest first, I could no longer keep it a secret. So in November, I took my 25 top producers to EXPCon in Las Vegas because I wanted them to see it for themselves. And I have to say, it was an incredible experience. Jason and Glenn even took time to meet with our team. And of course, they're geniuses. We all know that. But it was more than that. They were kind, humble, gracious, hospitable. And at the end of that week, every one of my 25 top producers said, Frank, we're in. We have to do this. How soon can we transition? So a couple weeks later, November 19th, I stood up at our 4-year anniversary party, and I said, guys, here we go. Here we go. This is our last party. I'm shutting down Abbey Realty. We're going to eXp Realty, and I'm inviting all of you to go with me. Now, very quickly, I'm going to wrap this up, and I'm going to tell you, it wasn't all cheers and hoorahs, because somebody else had plans for that day. And after I spoke and our eXp luminary spoke, my director of operations got up and started aggressively questioning our eXp guests. And before I knew it, she was hysterically screaming that our eXp guests were lying and that I was lying and that all of our agents would be better off going with her because she had started her own company. And her value proposition was, Frank's asking you to pay more money to go to eXp. I'm asking you to pay less to go with me. And she'd already opened her company, rented space a couple blocks from my office. Now, I'm telling you, we can be real, right? I can tell you what happened. It hurt us. 100 agents went with her. 200 others were so confused and disturbed by it, they scattered to the winds. And when it was all said and done, I had 160 agents still standing with me. Now, to be clear, those 160 agents accounted for 75 to 80% of our production. Yeah. They are our top producers. They're our visionaries. They're our business-minded, forward-focused agents. And in the 2 months since we have completed this transition, I'm telling you, they are more fired up than ever. In fact, 50 of them have joined my EWOX Club, Exponential Wealth Opportunity Club, and we're meeting every single month to help each one of us create this massive RevShare organization. In fact, Gene, I want to publicly say that I accept your challenge to be one of the 1,000 eXp agents who each change lives and generational destinies by attracting at least 1,000 more agents into the eXp family. And I want you to know, Gene, in fact, all of you, I want you to know this. For me, this will not just be a job. It will not just be an exciting challenge. It will not just be an incredible financial opportunity, but it is a mission, a ministry, and a calling. Thank you.